Hello, Judy.
Hello, Richard.
Hi. Hi. It may seem unusual that today that we are opening without any opening music.
Mhm.
But in lieu, I felt that it's a very strange day in our nation once again, because once again, for those who may or may not know, there was yet another school shooting.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this. We have two incredible guests that are waiting in the wings. And I don't want to put a pall over our show tonight because they have wonderful gifts to bring to the show. But something that we all grapple with in this country is this idea that the show must go on.
Mhm.
And you and I, very interestingly, we normally don't do shows on Mondays.
Right, we're
Uh,
Thursday people.
we are Thursday people. And because of my scheduling this week and someone that had scheduled the show a while ago, we moved our show to today. And then this happened. And I thought that there's everything happens for a reason. And I thought that it was appropriate that you be here with me, especially today, because I am very much an empath. And this really hit me hard today. Uh, I had a dental appointment this afternoon, and they call me Mr. Sunshine when I walk in because I'm always smiling. Dental appointment, there I am. But I walked in, and they said, something's really bothering you today. They could tell. And I said, well, have you seen the news? And of course, they had not. And well, I broke the news as I did with you. You weren't aware of the news today. And the fact that, again, it was a 28-year-old woman who went into a school, shot three adults, three children that are dead. I don't know if there are any others that were wounded. And then the police, when they were brought in, she was killed as well. But again, here we are. And I just thought I'd like to bring both of our guests on today, and I'd like to have a discussion about the work that we're in. One of our guests also, I've had the incredible pleasure of appearing with both of these men. John O'Neill, first of all, let me introduce him. John O'Neill is an amazing entertainer. He is an amazing entrepreneur. He has an incredible show that I have one of his CDs celebrating the music of Danny Kaye. It's one of my favorite CDs. It's uploaded, downloaded, whatever you want to call it. And it pops up all the time in my musical mix on my device, which is unplugged. So I can mention the name, it's not going to go off. But I listen to John all the time. And then Joe appears, for those of you who don't know, there he is in front of his red carpet. He appears as Joan Rivers, and he is keeping her very much alive. And of course, we loved him. And Joe and I wear this star around my neck. Joe was with me, and my husband Danny brought this for me in Santorini because Joe and I were appearing together on the Windstar cruise ship. He was appearing as Joan Rivers, and I was appearing as Carol Channing. And so here we are in this world where the world of drag is something that is triggering a lot with a lot of people right now. That is and maybe triggered is not the right word to use, but it is really setting people off in a way that the gun violence in schools is not. So I know that this was not what we were going to talk about today, but John, I want to begin with you in this issue of the idea of the show must go on and how that resonates with you and your thoughts about where we are in the world. And when things do happen, we've gone through 9/11 and other instances. What's your approach to how this and how you as an artist or as a producer feel that it needs to be addressed?
I think, well, first of all, I want to extend my deepest sympathy to the families and the children, and to all of America right now who is suffering with this news, as we do with daily, it seems. Yeah. It's breaking my heart today. But to answer your question, the show does need to go on because people need to be with each other. They need to be with community. Last night I presented a wonderful entertainer, and it was the first time that many members of the theater community had seen each other since COVID. And that opportunity to just come in and hug each other and say that and tell each other that we missed you so much and we do need to go on. We need to rebuild our community. We need to rebuild all of the places that host us. And we need to be strong against all of these things, particularly the shooting that happened again today.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, what is your take on this?
Yeah, well, my condolences as well to those that were killed, injured, the families, this country. It's tough out there. And I, as a Joan Rivers impersonator, I feel, to me, the show goes on because I make people laugh. So I hit the stage and that's what I do. I make people laugh. And that's, I feel, is a great medicine. For people, people leave, I do a meet and greet afterward and they I haven't laughed that long. And since, I don't know, I can't remember. So for me, that's what I bring, especially with Joan Rivers. I do comedy. And so that's healing for people. So that's what I'm doing. I'm busy doing that all over the country and traveling. So, and when I'm not on stage, we use our voices, right? We have conversations with people that don't understand. We try to, enlighten people, use our voices in whatever way we can. But me as an artist, that's what I do, right? Show goes on for me as a comedian. And I think it's so important. And again, audiences come up to me and just are thankful. They laugh like they've never laughed in their lives or of late. So I focus on that. That's what I can bring and do for people, So
yeah, well, I think people are able to compartmentalize too, so that they can both acknowledge tragedy in our lives and at the same time have room for other experiences and love.
Yes.
So, I think that's a natural adaptive quality that we have.
To add to that, I watch a lot of interesting interviews with Joan. I do a lot of research to kind of get her essence and, find her comedy, find her when she's not being funny, because she was very brassy on stage, but classy off stage. And she was empathetic. You mentioned being empathetic and compassionate. I feel I have those qualities, and that's what I bring that makes her really truthful, is because that's who she was. But my point is, there was an interview of her saying, I like you said, Judi. Yeah, I could be angry. I hate my husband killed himself. I hate him, but I'm still having a good day. Let's do the work. Let's write that show. Let's do that. But I still hate my husband. I'm still angry. But let's do this. It's again, we can do other things and be. What's the word? I'm getting so excited. Yes, that we can. So that's true, and she knew that, and that's what she did. So
Joe, it's very interesting. For years when I was performing as Carol, there was always. I mean, she lived to be, almost 99.
Right.
But I stopped performing long before she reached that age.
Right.
And unfortunately, with Joan Rivers, and I actually was with Joan Rivers the week before she passed away.
Wow.
And her passing was so sudden and out of left field. It was such a tragic ending.
Right.
How long for you did you feel that there was the appropriate time for you to wait before you knew that it was time to go on stage and perform again?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. She died. It'll be 9 years, September 4th of this year.
And
Yeah, and she was performing in Provincetown at Town Hall on July 5th of 2014. And I also was doing a show down the street as Joan. I also performed as Barbara Streisand, Liza Minnelli in a show. And she performed at Town Hall. I went and saw her show. Tony Tripoli was her opening act and head writer, who's a friend. I did some shows with him. But she was performing that July. I was there. The photo that you showed was taken July 5th, 2 months prior to her passing away. But my point is, when that was at Tin Pan Alley in Provincetown, a meet and greet on the lovely patio in the back of Tin Pan Alley, great restaurant right across from Town Hall in the center of Provincetown. And
I'll be there July 28th, by the way, for anyone who's interested.
So she left after she did 2 shows that night, 7 and 9:30. At 81 years old, God bless her. And when she left, I had to continue. I had a season to do. It was only July, and I had August into Labor Day to perform. So I'd be, on the street as you do, selling the show. And some people were just like, "Oh, Joan," because she was in a coma for a week. "I hope you're all right." I'm like, "Oh, I'll be fine." So, you use your, "I'll be fine, but I'm here today," right? We're in Provincetown. It's gorgeous. Then there are people that say, "Joan, aren't you yet?" There are people that are, "Aren't you done yet? Aren't you done yet?" And I'll be like, "Oh, grow up." "No, I'm not. Come see me and you just sort of divert. But the point is, I had to continue that whole time. And then when the night that she passed on that September 4th, then they let her go. We canceled the show. I couldn't do it. It wasn't right for that night.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, and then the next day I said, "Let's do it." And I had angel wings, and I had these white angel wings. So I just would, bark and do what you do in Provincetown out front to have people come with wings on, saying, "I crossed over, but I'm in Provincetown because we're in a great place and I had to be here. Plus, the check is good. When the check is good, you show up." So there's always a yin and a yang, right, to these characters. For me, if I don't find the yin and a yang, it's not all. People think Joan was just like, critical, everything was, "I don't like your dress." No, there was always like, "But you're still fabulous, and aren't we lucky?" Everything was that. And so I had to find that in those moments of grief, especially the weeks after. And then, I took a little time, and then I worked with Tony Tripoli, who was her opening act. He said, "Let's do something together." So he would do, not to go on and on, but he would open the show and to tell stories of Joan. He worked with her, wonderful stories, just to heal with the audience, to know that this was a love fest. And he would say, "Joan is gone, but tonight let's celebrate her." Then I would come on, and it was an honor to, work with him and do it in that vein. And we worked 5 years together. And so now we're 9 years in, and we, grief is always there, right? Loss is always there, but it sort of changes and it heals itself in a certain way. Things are a little bit better, but also real quickly, Joan started doing Joan jokes about Edgar when he committed suicide. Literally, I think 6 months after, or maybe 6 weeks. I don't know. 6 weeks or 6 months after she'd say, "It was my fault. We were making love and I took the bag off my head. It was my fault." She would immediately go there. So interesting.
It was the elephant in the room. It was something that people knew was there. And is she going to address it? Is she not going to address it? And I mean, just recently, with Chris Rock, going out and addressing this around the world.
Yes, and it took him a year to heal. He didn't want to be a victim. I watched that special on Netflix. He didn't want to be a victim and just go on Oprah and cry, "Look at he did, poor me," or be that sort of Oprah moment. He gave himself a year to just then come back, and he closed out that hour and 9-minute Netflix special doing 9 minutes of that with Will Smith, and he dropped the mic and he left, and he owned it. It took him a year. He didn't do what everyone thought he was going to do, and good for him. And that's how he, handled that moment,
John, have you ever been in a situation where something has happened in the world, or something where you've had to make a decision? Do we go on tonight? Do we not go on? I mean, even in your private life, I mean, things happen. People pass on, and what do we do? Have you ever been in that position?
Well, certainly in my private life, I think all of us have come into that, have had that experience where something has happened. Somebody has passed. My grandmother had passed, or my parents passed, and on the day my grandmother passed, I do remember I went on that evening, and part of that was because that's what she would have wanted.
Mm-hmm.
She knew not only the joy that the audience got, but the joy that I got, and would have known that that I needed that time with the audience to just celebrate. I remember I was on stage or in a piano bar on the night that Princess Di was killed. And I think much like Joe, that was just something that was too much for the world to take in. And so we stopped the show. We talked a little bit about it. I visited with the audience members. People were checking, phones, televisions, were trying to find out. I think there are times where the grief is so strong that we just have to hold the grief, and then move on. And it's a hard decision to make. But Joe's audiences needed to heal, needed to move on, needed to know that life was going to continue. My grandmother would have again had that same feeling, but it's just that it's that hard balance. I think Princess Di was a little too large for the world, and each day is a brand new day, a brand new challenge. I do hope that the people who have shows tonight think about it and make the decision that's best for them and for their audience.
Well, it's very interesting that Hello Dolly with Pearl Bailey was on Broadway when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And Pearl Bailey had to make the decision as to whether or not, because this was an all African-American company, whether they would go on that night and do the show. And she felt the same thing. The audience needs to be healed. And so she made a collective decision. She led that company. So it was her sole decision that night, whether they would go on or not. Joe, I want to address another issue, if you don't mind my bringing this up.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Bring it.
Yes.
Bring it.
I just appeared at Crazy Aunt Helen's in Washington, D.C. On Sundays, they do Drag Time Story Hour. I heard after the fact, didn't know until after the fact, that the venue that I performed in received a bomb threat the day that I performed there, as well as the owner had received a bomb threat from the Proud Boys. And this is getting out of hand. And the threats are really bad. As Judi and I addressed on our last show, this is not really about drag. We both know that. It's about LGBTQ issues. Why do you think that this is becoming such a hotbed issue beyond all of that right now? And why do you think it's becoming such a hot topic?
Well, I know. I try to find the right, it's a diversion of sorts. It's a diversion to pick on this so that we don't deal with the guns, that we don't deal with, what about, to be all honest, like what about, the church and what's going on with, the children being abused in churches with men in dresses, let's talk about it. So now we're picking on the drag because it's we're trying to get the LGBTQ plus, but it's also a diversion from what's really going on. And we can divert people and let people think that that's what the issue is, because nothing's being done obviously about the other things. So this is not what's, killing children is taking them to a drag brunch. It's the guns, as today and all the other shootings. There's been 128 shootings in this year alone, as you know. So it's a diversion, and it's getting in people's heads to, it's a civil war in our heads, and people are trying to spew these things so that we don't deal with the right important issues of the guns. And that's what it is. And it's power, and it needs to, but I do have faith, you mentioned you smile at the dentist. I'm one of those people. I feel like I do feel like the pendulum will swing a little bit again. I feel like the young people, after we get rid of some of this older generation, will come in. They're voting. They don't care if you're who you love. They're going to come in. They just don't care. They don't care. So
What was that, Judi? I'm sorry.
So they don't care if you're purple.
Yeah, right.
So I have hope they're going to then lead. But my fear is the young kids, the 8, 9, 10, that are not learning the history of, African Americans, that are banning books. They're not going to learn history. Will it repeat itself? Then history will then repeat itself if we don't learn about it. So I worry a little bit more about them. Hopefully their parents are doing the right thing by them. But that other, those other young people will come in. The older people will, die off. Whatever they're elected in these offices and these positions too long, because the world changes and they don't change. So, but to answer your question, we're diverting. I go in, I do my job, I work, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I try to be funny when I'm not feeling funny. You know what this is like, Richard. You go up, you're backstage, any of us that perform, and you're like, and as a comic, I'm not really funny. These things are happening all over the world. How am I supposed to do this? And I look up and I say, Joan, let's do this together. Help me. And once I step into that space, it's there, it's there, and I'm just in a dream world. That's what we all do, right? It's dream, and we take people on this journey. And as Joan was quoted as saying, she quotes Winston Churchill, if you can make one person laugh, it's like taking them on a little vacation, and that's what she would do, and that's my job. But anyway, I'm going off a little bit, but we're diverting to the real issues, but
So, Joan, when I think of you, and I've quoted this many times before, Carol Channing said there are entertainers and there are performers. A seal is a performer. It's interested in only one thing, getting a fish. It will balance a ball on its nose. It will flap its fins only to get that fish. An entertainer is interested in the audience. It gets out there. It does what it needs to do to make sure that the audience is having a great time. And that's you. I mean, from the moment that you hit the stage, you are solely focused on making that audience have a great time. Same thing with you, Joe. That's what both of you were about. John, what is the most controversial thing? I can't imagine you dealing with controversy, but what is the most controversial thing that you've ever had to encounter in this business, and what got you through it?
Well, I think the most controversial thing that is happening right now is that the diversity of the gay community is expanding. And now we have new communities and a new generation of youth and some adults who now identify non-binary, are trans, and they're embracing their bodies, they're embracing their identities. And even here in Boston, it frightens an awful lot of people. And I just know that as it comes up, and it does come up frequently, I don't hear it on stage because I perform for communities that are all embracing. But I am on the street. I am working perhaps with theater companies or other companies in conjunction with my business, and it just comes up. And I think that I just need to be strong. I need to remember. I need to remind, and I need to embrace. And that's what gets me through, because if I don't, I live in the fear that they're creating.
Right.
And then I am paralyzed with fear. So that little step forward just can give me the strength to just keep going on, just keep finding the audiences, just keep welcoming the audiences. And I do it not only for all of the members of my community and all the communities, but I do it for me, because I can't let these people let me live in fear.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I'm curious, Joe and Richard, you can weigh in on this too. Why the decision to perform in drag? You're a performer, okay? You're a performer. You're a comedian.
You go
So
first.
why the decision to perform in drag?
Well, it's just to kind of shorten it. I was a dancer. I started as a dancer when I was in my teens. I did a lot of theater, musical theater, West Side Story international tour. I'm a tap dancer. I was a dancer. And living in New York, but I would, with these casts, I would be in the hotel rooms and they would say, Joe, do Barbara, grab a hairbrush and just lip sync. And I just had a knack of just, I'm doing Barbara or Liza, and they'd go, oh my God, you're so good. Like, you do this. So it was all for fun as I was dancing and doing these theatrical shows, because I approach my work now very theatrical because that's my background. So then an evening at La Cage came to New York, and at the Blue Angel Supper Club on 44th Street. And I went into audition. I thought, maybe I have something. I didn't know how to do hair, makeup. I didn't have a costume. I just went in fact, and Mandy Dejanay, who's still a friend, I had dinner with her 2 nights ago. She lives here in Hollywood, Florida. I'm in Wilton Manors, Florida. And 30 years ago this year is when I went in, I auditioned. They were like, you don't have the look, the makeup, but come back, work on it. You're really good. And I went back and they helped me. They chose 7 cast members. I was one of 7. We did 2 characters each. I did Barbara and Liza. They said, you have it as an actor, you do it, but we have to work on the look. And I learned like within 4 weeks, Richard, within 4 weeks, and we were on the Geraldo Rivera show. I'm like, it was so much, but I crossed over because it was just something I did for fun. And I got a lot of support from dancers and friends in theater. And then this audition came up, got the show, ended up doing touring companies with An Evening at La Cage in Aruba. I lived there a year and a half, St. Martin for a month. And I just started doing that. And then I create my own shows. Joan came later. I was a lip sync act for many years. Joan came about 18, 20 years ago. And I said, I could do comedy. I never thought I could do comedy. I don't even, stand up. I never really went to stand up clubs. I find it a little, lackluster. Oh, they tell jokes. I was like, but Joan's energy, because she's New York and she's exciting and she's more of an observational comic. It's not knock joke comedy. It just spoke to me, and her New York sensibility, survivor of the business, survivor of suicide, like we're talking tonight. Just like John said, just surviving, not living in fear, going for it. And so that energy spoke to me. And again, if I don't get the yin and yang, and so it just, she's in there, and the drag thing, that's how it happened. And I'm finding, some people recently said, you're kind of fun. You're funny. I don't think Joe is that funny, but people think I'm funny. I'm energetic. But they're like, why don't you try doing it without the? But you know what? As a business, I'm not one male comic. There's a lot of male comedians. There's a lot of female. This is specialized, and Joan, and it's specialized, and no one's really doing what I do. So it's, and I'm getting booked constantly. So it's good. It's good to be specialized now. So that's kind of where I'm at and how that began. So,
Richard, how about?
And I love it.
Well, for me, I could do Carol's voice. I mean, I got up and sang there, and I talk about this in my show now, but I got up and I sang at a piano bar. And as a result of that, I ended up getting cast in a show as Carol. And little by little, when Carol came back to Broadway to do her last revival of Hello, Dolly, a friend called me up and said, if you do not do a show about Carol Channing, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. And I said, well, what if people don't like it? And he said, well, you'll find out fast enough. So I started putting a show together. And, just like a miracle, before I opened the show, I did the show for Carol Channing. She loved it. She endorsed it. She's talking about the show. I opened the show, and like something out of a movie, a woman in the audience one night comes up to me and says, would you like to perform in Atlantic City? And I'm headlining 6 months later at everybody, Trump's Taj Mahal.
Oh, God. I think they knocked it down. Did they knock that down yet?
No, it's knocked down. It's knocked down. I did 2 long-running shows at Trump's Taj Mahal.
Oh, God.
Carol Channing was one of she was my biggest supporter. We appeared together on stage. She was there for me. It was just great. Donald Trump was at my opening night in Atlantic City. I've got photographs of me with him. I mean, he was. It was different. I mean, he was not the crude person that you see him now.
Crazy.
To the extent that you see him now, he was polite, and Ivana was there with him. That was when he was married to her. But that's how that whole career began for me, and it was just like, as Joe said, it like snowballed, and that was the career that I had that came out of that. And every time that I felt like I'm going to do something else, I would be pulled back in, to do more of this. And John O'Neill, John, was it the first Cabaret Fest that you booked me as the headliner?
It absolutely was 2000, I think. Yes, the very first one.
I was the headliner in Provincetown, thanks to John and Valerie Sneed.
Fabulous.
And
where in Provincetown? Where did you do that?
Crown and Anchor.
Crown and Anchor. Wow. It's funny. You mentioned at the beginning of the show that I at one time had a Danny Kaye show that I took around. I really find it interesting that the three of us were each drawn to people, three very caring, loving, giving personalities, and we're able to channel our empathy, our love, to express that to the audience and bring that alive. And I think that that's a gift that each of us have that have enabled us to create our niches and continue to make people laugh, love, cry, embrace.
I want to share a story about Joan Rivers, because her last book had just come out. I was doing a lot of interviews at Barnes & Noble. So I was invited as a guest for her last book signing at Barnes & Noble. And a friend of mine, Jed Ryan, stood up and said, "I understand that you are performing same-sex marriages." And she said, "Yes, do you know someone who wants to get married?" And he said, "Yes." And he gets on his knee and he proposes to his partner. And she says, "Come up here, let me marry you." And she performs the marriage right there. And then after the marriage, she says, "This is not legitimate because you don't have a marriage license, but see my assistant, and I'd like you to get a marriage license, and we'll do a real wedding at my place when you're ready." And a week later, they got married at her apartment in New York, and it was covered by Entertainment Tonight, everything. That's who Joan Rivers was.
Right.
One night, another friend of mine, we were having dinner at Joe Allen's, and he said, "I used to live in her building, but she's not going to remember me." And this was when she was a struggling artist living in Greenwich Village. And I said, "You should go over and introduce yourself." And he said, "She's not going to remember me." And I said, "Just go over and say hello." She saw him and she screamed, "Oh my God, Ray Jessel," at the top of her lungs. And she came over, threw her arms around him. And he was like a young fan excited to see him.
Right.
It was just, to see that happen was just he was so moved that she remembered him after all these years. She, whatever this image that people had of Joan Rivers, he was the real deal.
Right. Absolutely. I encountered her multiple times. I did a red carpet. I do a lot of red carpet events. Who are you wearing even to this day? You see the carpet. It's just, and I did an event in Houston, Texas, and I did a red carpet, a big fundraiser. And the agent said, "All right, Joan's going to do the award ceremony." I'm like, "Is Joan here?" This was back in 2006. They're like, "Yeah, she's here." They kept us separate. So we come in, all of a sudden they take her, we go backstage. So I met her for the first time backstage, and the bit that we did was they said, "You saw her on the red carpet," which was me. "Let's welcome her back. Please welcome Joan Rivers." And then she says to me, "That's you, go." So I go on stage and I'm like, and she comes up from behind, "Get off my stage, bitch." That's Joe Posa. He makes a lot of money doing me. and then mwah, mwah, and then went off stage, and then she did her bit. It was like a 45-minute presentation. It was funny because she does a lot of things about Botox, and this was a very hoity-toity, no one wanted to laugh. She gets off stage, she goes, "This was worth every penny, let's get out of here." So then we're going through back to her dressing room. She almost slips because it's through the kitchen, as you know, a lot of these things. And she says, "I'll sue." And I looked at her, I said, "We'll sue twice." And I think that solidified the deal.
That was it. Yeah.
She knew that I had that same ilk, like John, you were saying, compassion, whatever it is. There was a sensibility. And she says, "Come in my dressing room." She gave me all the leftover food. "What did they give you in your dressing room?" I go, "I got nothing." "Take it, take it. And if you ever want to see me, call Judi Katz, and she'll get you tickets."
Yes.
And up until the end, I would go, but I would always get her a Starbucks gift card because she didn't like those Cybo Express coffee places in the airports. She liked Starbucks, so I would give her a little gift card and give it backstage. And she would, and in Boston, actually, John, at the Berklee School of Music, she did her show there, and I left it at the stage door. And during the announcement, no photographs, no flash photography, whatever. And I kid you not, it was very sweet. The gentleman, Graham, her assistant, when he made this announcement, said, "And will Joe Posa please come backstage after tonight's performance?" So again, wanting to make sure that I went back so she could thank me, and she met my husband Frank. I go, "Well, last time I saw you gave me all this food." She goes, "Let's keep the tradition going. Come on." And she made a bag for me. She gave me more food, and it was just. And I said to her, I don't want to go on and on, but I did say to her, "I do you in my act, and I always do you respectfully." I think you know this, Richard. You know, it's important to do that. I said, "I always do you respectfully. I want you to know." She says to me, "You can do me disrespectfully."
Carol did the same thing. I always said I will never cross the line, and Carol says, "But if you do, it's okay." Yeah. And Carol and I appeared together at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco. And after the show, and Carol, God bless her, she insisted that I be in every picture with her. And so after the show, this guy was there, and he was an African-American guy, but he had a blonde wig on. He had a blazer, the pleated skirt, and Carol leaned over and said, "Richard, look at that guy. He's trying to do us."
Funny.
Great. And it's great to get that kind of respect from that. Yeah. Because John, same thing. And let's face it, and John, you know this to be true, a lot's been said behind the scenes about Danny Kaye over the years. I've got friends watching who worked with Danny Kaye who could tell you stories that would make your hair stand on end. But you treated him with respect and dignity as he deserved on stage.
Well, and I think that's important because I think we have to recognize sort of what our audience wants too, because there are people who are going to go out and they're going to dish and they're going to be nasty and they're going to be evil. But when people go to see Joan, when they go to see Carol, or when they would go to see my Danny Kaye show, there are certain things, there are certain rhythms, there are certain jokes that they want to hear. Absolutely. And if there is something in that closet, forgive the pun, close it before you get out on that stage, so that all you have is whoever you're celebrating and the audience on stage.
Right? Absolutely.
Well, Joe, I have a question for you, because Joan is such a controversial figure, and the envelope can easily be pushed with her. Has there ever been an instance with you where you have gone there and the audience, audiences today are very different from audiences were even when she was around.
Right.
Do you feel, do you feel that you're walking around sometimes on eggshells with today's audiences? Is it different for you?
It's interesting. No, because they know they're coming to see Joan. I also feel like I have license to kill kind of in this world of being politically correct, because young comedians have it very difficult to start out. And what can I say? You get slapped. You see what happens even on the Oscars. It's very difficult. But with Joan, they know They know they're coming and that she can talk about everybody. So I'm not afraid because Joan is the armor of bravery and I can do that. So it's so freeing for me doing this character. If I was a young comic or, you know, starting out, it's a very different animal, like you said, than when she was alive. It would be very difficult, but I'm fine. I get out there and, you know, the audiences are ready to laugh and I go there, I push it. Now, granted, I am not her, right? I'm doing her. So, you know, and when you were Carol, we're all impersonating. So you're not the person to get away with it. I'm impersonating her. So there's a little bit of thing there, a little space, but, they're ready to have fun. They know they want it, and they come back after and say, I remember those when she did that, or I never saw her live. I feel like I saw her live tonight. Thank you. And I talk about the vaginas. I talk about the, gay audiences are the best audiences in the world. They laugh at anything. They're so stupid. Best audience. So it's kind of like you're making fun, but you're not really, talk about psychology. It's a psychology of sorts. It's like, this is, I could probably say this. I don't know. There's a joke I'll say when we're talking about race and stuff. You want to address these things. I'll say, I don't care. I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, or green. As long as you could do my hair, that's what counts. So then it goes back to her shallowness. It goes back to her. It goes back to just. And then people laugh and they're like, why am I laughing? And I'm very good with the audience doing improv with, who are you in the front? And then, but I have them laughing and I'm making fun of them because I'm just going, look at you wearing, my guy. And I'll go back, why are you wearing that? And you're in the front row. And they just laugh because there's a way to do these things with people. And Joan had that, like we said earlier, there's a way in which to, with compassion and empathy and understanding the human condition, the psychology of it. I mean, Dr. Judi, I mean, that's what it's all of that, especially when you're impersonating somebody. You have to have that sort of way, or else, it can be very flat, and you'll lose the audience. It's like, so.
Do you think you can get away with saying things you couldn't get away with if you were performing as Joe?
I don't think I could say certain things. I really don't in this climate. I don't know until I do it, but I don't know. I mean, there's 9/11 jokes that sometimes I go, should I do it? It's been a while, but she did 9/11 jokes like weeks or maybe after. But
she got in trouble. She got in trouble.
Yes, and
she actually got banned from Atlantic City for a 9/11 joke.
You're right.
Right after, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was at the Taj Mahal that she got banned seriously for making a 9/11 joke about 2 weeks after 9/11.
She did it very, very soon. She would always believe, and I know this.
And it was a joke about the widows and collecting money.
I do that joke. I know what that is. They each got $5 million. I'm sure out of all of them, there are 5 that are not that unhappy. And so it's more observational. It's not, it's just like about money. It's really not, but it was too soon. But she would often say, if you got to push the audience away and bring them back. You can't keep the audience with comedy, especially close and cuddle and hug them. You got to make them think and push them away so that it gets like rattled. You got to rattle them, especially with her, maybe with all comics, but she would often say, you've got to push them away so that you could then hug them again. So I do that. But just when the show is almost over, like I have, I do a 75-minute, no intermission show. I do a cabaret length show. And just when I got 7 minutes left and I'm really on the roll, I could end it. They're laughing. I go, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say something a little edgy. I might lose them. But Joan said, if you don't push them away. So then I'll go, then I'll do something like a 9/11 when I don't have to, but I'm like, she's like, just do it or do this or just say it. But then I'll get them back. So it's a game. It's a game. And she'll always say, you're the lion tamer as a comedian, as a stand-up. You've got to tame that audience. You are in control and it's a fight. And it goes along with, again, who she was. I am going to fight and I'm going to win. And I don't care what, so it's that spirit. It's very interesting and it's really very fulfilling. I love it.
Well, speaking of which, John, I want to ask you, what was it about, or what is it about this business that originally attracted you? And over the course of your career, and you've been on both sides of the aisle, so what is it about the business that still resonates so strongly with you? And what is it that's changed in the business that you really miss?
Well, it's funny because I'm the performer who never intended to be a performer. Huh. I happened to become a performer because I was out of work, and I happened to show up at a piano bar one night, and the entertainer was not there, and I'm not quite sure why. I said, I can do this. And said, great, do it. And I sat down. It was at the old Napoleon Room.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I remember.
1990. And then, much like the magic you talked about, all of a sudden I was headlining the room. And so I learned, as each of us did, the craft while in the fire. And what I miss, I think, right now about that, and I meet a lot of great seasoned talent. I meet a lot of new talent. I miss the people who want to do the work that Joe had talked about. That I don't know if it's social media, that everybody can be a star at home and everybody can produce and everybody can do things. But even I just find, even on the simplest level, we no longer see people going to open mics and learning their music. And they're right there, they're learning. True. And the beauty of live theater, and we've all done live theater, is the risk. And as you're learning and as you're jumping in the fire, you're taking a risk. You're going to go up. You're going to forget this. You're going to forget that. But more importantly, you have no idea what that body of work is that you're doing. And I think that that's what I miss most of all, that it's the instant gratification that many people want to have on the stage and not necessarily look at the work. Now, mind you, I do want to say that we have so many great teachers, and they come into Boston, and many people want to work with all of the Broadway stars, and yet, if there isn't a Broadway star that's going to be giving that information, then there's nothing for them to learn. And the reality is, it's the fire that forged every single one of us. And I think I miss seeing people make that risk to go out, be brave, conquer, be vulnerable, and make.
That's great. Right. There's a critic in New York who actually, in his reviews now, cabaret shows, he gives extra points if they are not using a music stand with their music on the music stand, because so many performers are now doing that. And I will say that this weekend, on Thursday night, I saw Patti LuPone, who was unbelievable. And then on Saturday night, I went to see Chita Rivera at 90 years young, knocking it out of the ballpark. No music sheets, no music stand. And talked about what got her interested in getting into this business. And believe it or not, and this blew me, I jumped out of my seat almost. It was seeing Carol Channing at a young age that inspired her.
Yes. Wow.
Yes,
that's amazing.
And that's in her new book that's coming out. Joe, same question.
What was the question? Wait.
What was it that originally pulled you into the business, and what is it that you miss about that was in place when you first?
Well, again, I started as a dancer, and I loved, my mom was a dance teacher. It was in our family, this musical family, and I just loved dancing. And so I just knew that I wanted to do that, and it started to get work in New York right out of high school. Did a lot of shows, theater, and I just loved it. And then, like I said earlier, how this drag sort of career started. But I guess I miss similarly the work that should go into it. I mean, we have RuPaul now, right? And and that's like we're saying, like 15 minutes. They get famous right away. They don't really, they get on there, and all of a sudden they're known, and they demand all this money when they appear around the country at, I mean, John, Club Cafe, where you do things in which it's so ironic we're in this situation because my husband Frank owns Club Cafe. It's the 40th year of Club Cafe. A little plug, clubcafe.com. John, you booked the room there, the Napoleon room. It's just so wonderful. And a lot of the RuPaul girls come through there, and nothing against them, but they, I don't even really watch the show, to be honest, because they're so similar. There's no one stands out separate. They need to be of a certain mold in order to win, in order to get so far. I mean, there are certain standouts, and I don't want to, Bianca Del Rio's funny. There are certain that have come through, but it just seems to be, it's a platform, right? I love that there's a platform there. We need it more than ever. Yes. Mainstream, like we're being attacked to do what we do, but they're watching. People are watching RuPaul. That's what's so weird about it. Children are watching, women are watching, some men love it secretly, and yet we're being attacked, and they love the show. How many Emmys has RuPaul won?
A lot of men are watching it not secretly.
Right.
Exactly. And so what is that? So it's clearly acceptable, but not to those that want to divert us from the attention of the real stuff, the real issues at hand, right? So I guess I love the work. I love to be, Joan was always over prepared. She knew what she was doing. And like John, I love to be ready to go. It's part of my old school way, being a theater person, be prepared, learn the material. I do 75 minutes. I don't have anything. Joan would have the cue cards out front, and she was, but she would have them and read them, but she would make a joke. Who do they think I'm 100? And but yet they were there. I have my little backstage, and I'm like, all right. And like Joan would say, it's like a deck of cards. You just got to look at them and then just throw them in the air wherever they stick. But she had them. And some people say, why don't you put cue cards down? And so it replicates what she did. But then I'm like, well, then certain stages, as are low to the ground. I don't want people reading, oh, he's going to do that joke, he's going to do that joke. Again, I'm not her, it's like, so I don't do it. But I miss the work. I miss the blood, sweat, and tears of the business. And there's passion for that. It's passion, and yet, I can be famous, I can make money, I can, whatever. And there's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of young talent in schools that are doing shows. I see high school production. Oh my God, the voices and the talent. And you probably know, John, there's so much talent, but they're like, maybe I'll do it, or maybe I don't know. We're just because of social media. I don't know. They don't know what they want. I knew what I wanted. It was that, and that was it. I didn't have all these other options. Maybe there's too much fast, they don't know what's going to, they want fame. I don't know. So I like the old school approach.
I do too. And I do want to say one thing that, and I don't watch RuPaul either. So I'm always at a loss when people are talking about these people, or even if they're coming into the club and I'm just like, well, who is that?
Right.
I think the big nod I want to throw out to RuPaul is that she is on the air, and there are children who see themselves up there.
Absolutely.
When I was a child, there was nobody for me to see, and so that is just a gift. It is a gift, and so I'm very thankful that RuPaul's Drag Race and all those stars come, and although I don't know them, I do applaud. Although I have no idea who they are, but I do applaud that RuPaul has given drag a platform of legitimacy. And that backstage, it isn't just the magic that we see when you go out on stage, for instance, as Joan, but we get to see them And I guess it's a little catty. It's a little, it's a little strange.
Contrived, creative.
Yeah, but you get to see their humanity. You get to see their tears. You get to see their fears. You get to see their bitchiness. But nonetheless, these children now have people that they can see. And I think that that's such a gift that the show that I don't watch gives us.
Right. Absolutely. We need that. We need that. It's important. He did good with that. For sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give each of you, we've reached the end of our show actually, and I know that Judi, I know that you've got another appointment to get to. So rather than having you have the final word today, I'm going to have the final word, and I'm going to let you go first so that we don't run over for you.
Great.
I will let you speak, and then I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final word today. Joe and John, thank you for being here. It could be about anything that we spoke about today that you want to build upon, anything we didn't speak about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with today. And then I will leave everyone with my final message for today. And Judi, we will be back here in 2 weeks, and I'm so excited. We have great guests lined up, and you've sent me one of them, and Bryce, and I cannot wait. So, yes. So, Judi, it's yours.
All right. Well, I think that what we've been talking about today, right, is about accepting the gifts that we have, right, and making the most of those gifts, and inhabiting whatever persona seems the best vehicle to deliver our own messages to others, right? Because we're all about, sharing who we are, aspects of the self, but also the aspects of the performers that, everybody here inhabits. So it's, and finding that common ground, right, between them and us, if you will. So finding common ground with everybody that you come in contact with, and treating other people with love and respect. I think that that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And I love you, Judi.
Love you too.
Pleasure to meet you, Judi. Take care.
Great to meet you, Judi.
And I'm going to turn it over to you, John.
Well, this has just been a wonderful hour. Thank you so much for having me. This community that we have, this theater community that we have, this gay community we have, this drag community we have, I am so fortunate to be a member of all of them. And as I have grown older and I have left the stage, it just continues to be my privilege to be able to present new and old talent to audiences here in Boston. And at the same time, introducing audiences to something they may never have seen before. Many people have not been in a gay club before. They've come in to see this show. And they come in, they see that it's just a microcosm, it's just a little snapshot of a world that is actually their world. They're just not really aware that that's it. And so I just love the fact that I can continue to bring all these people together with all the marvelous talents that I have through the great club that I work for, Club Cafe, which was created by Joe's husband 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good to see you, John.
And Joe, it's yours.
Look, it's just us. It's Carol and Joan. We could do a show. We're both in black.
Right here.
I'll just button one more button. We look at that. Oh, thank you for thinking of me, having me here. I suppose it's National Joe Day. That's
National Joe Day. Well, I'll explain. National Joe Day was what originally we were going to be celebrating today. National Joe, a cup of Joe. Coffee Joe's tonight. That's what my husband and I are having for dinner tonight.
Nice.
And Famous Joe's, Josephine's Cafe, Cabaret, your friend Joe that we were hoping to have on the show, and that's why the guest was listed there. Joe Biden, God bless him, he's got a lot on his plate. So all if you know any Joes out there, we wanted to have them on the show today. We will not have a show tomorrow, but I will be back on Wednesday with a celebration of the Partridge Family. So yes, it's going to be fun.
Wow,
So
wow, wow.
take it away.
So just a pleasure. Again, kindness, as Dr. Judy Blume said. Just it's easier to be kind than unkind, right? In getting through the day that way, or easier to tell the truth than to lie. I mean, it's just easier. Like, why do we put these not little? Why do we put obstacles in front of us? Just smile. Be nice to someone, because it will come back, and you'll feel better. It's just that simple. My takeaway of COVID was, we couldn't see each other for 2-3 years, what have you. And, I thought, when I get back into the world, I'm not that I never reached across the aisle, but when I'm in an elevator, I might be a little quiet and not talk to anyone. I'm a performer. I save it for stage. I might, I'm not big on small talk. I just don't, I feel a little shy. I'm kind of shy that way. I guess that's the way to put it. But also but now I'm in an elevator and I think, let's talk to them. We couldn't do this. Now we can do this. So how you doing? You having a good day? And again, that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway. There has to be a takeaway for what we went through. So I choose that. I'm grateful for the work that I have. I'm working. I'm all over as Joan, doing different shows. I put together a show with Seth Sykes that is exciting, called
Oh, I
Tributes.
love Seth. Say hello for me.
He's such a talent, and I'm doing Joan, making people laugh. And I also was given
and I'll my name everywhere in Palm Springs.
I will.
The Purple Room.
Okay. I'll talk to Michael Holmes. He's amazing.
I love Michael.
So on a final, because we talked about a lot of the passion of what we do and all the other things, but Joan had a jewelry line, QVC, and she, as you know, the jewelry, and her favorite piece was the bee pin. She loved the bee pin because it should not fly, because it has a fat round body and little, transparent wings. It should not anatomically, it isn't correct to fly. And it does. And I talk about this a little bit in the show. I come out of it a little bit. I do Joan, and then I go, I'm really Joe Posa, Joan Rivers, and I want to tell this story. And I tell the story about the bee, and that we should all just get up and fly and do it and defy all odds like the bee. That's what Joan's messaging was. And when she passed, Tony Tripoli, God bless him, who's a brilliant comedian and a dear friend, gave me this bee pin, which was Joan. And she actually gave me 3. This is the largest of the 3. And it was her pin. And he jumped through hoops to get it to me. And he gave it to me backstage in one of our shows. And I wear it on stage. So I took it off my costume I wasn't going to wear it. I just wanted to, in this moment, show you that this was hers. And so I wear it on stage, and I do then tell the story. This was Joan's, and that's the message that she liked. And that's the message that came through for me during these COVID years. Like, get up, fly, look around, and open yourself up. So it's very important, and we will be better for it, right? We will live better lives. If you think of the word disease, disease is dis-ease.
That's right.
If you break it apart, it's you're not at ease, so you're at dis-ease. So be at ease, be open. We're all going through this together. We're divided, but do the best we can to come together. And I'm grateful I can do it through my work, and talk to someone in the elevator. It's not that difficult. Richard, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I know you.
Give Frank a big hug and a kiss for me.
I certainly will. And your husband too. And you take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here. Like I said, when at 1:00 today, I stopped and turned on the TV just to see what the news was. And when I saw that there was yet another school shooting, and I saw that it was an elementary school, and that I'm tearing up, that 3 children had been shot, it really got to me. Every day, I go for a morning walk, and as I'm taking my morning walk around the square here where I live, I see all these kids waiting to get on the school bus. And I say a little prayer for each of them, that they have a great day, and that they're not bullied in school, and that they are loved, and that they send out love as well, and that they're safe. I'm 62 years young, and I am grateful. I'm grateful that I went to school at a time where I didn't have to worry about whether or not the kid sitting next to me had a gun in his backpack, or whether somebody was going to come through that door and was going to cut my life short. These are the things that we have to worry about on a daily basis. I was talking to my dear friend Maria Octavia today, and I said, and this is my experiment for everybody: turn on your TV, start at the first channel, and channel surf through all your channels, and count the number of images that you see that are violent. And while I was on the phone today with her, we counted 25 violent images, and this was at 4 p.m. this afternoon. This is when kids are at home. This is when kids are watching television. They're home from school and everything, unsupervised, most of them, if they do turn their TVs on. They've got their phones, they've got their devices, and it's violent image after violent image after violent image. And no one is speaking up about it. It's okay that those images are being, constantly bombarded at them. Show a man in a gown, whether it be sexual or non-sexual, that's not the issue, and the world is screaming out. I saw in the news tonight that there were 4 Congress people that have, rather than wearing the American flag on their lapel, they have an AR rifle as their lapel pin. The NRA, the Second Amendment, is not about the Second Amendment is not about your right to bear arms anymore. It's about commerce. It's about making money. Every time there's a gun shooting, gun sales go up in this country. They could care less about your rights or my rights to walk around in this square where I live peacefully without getting shot. They could care less. It's not about rights anymore. It's about their rights to make money at this. And it's awful. We all should have a right to live our lives peacefully in this country without worrying about our children being shot. And my heart is broken for these children in Nashville, Tennessee tonight. And this person that walked into a school today with 2 AR-15s and a handgun and took the lives of 6 people that I'm aware of as of this live broadcast right now. It wasn't just the lives of 6 people that she ended. She's destroyed the lives of so many people. Those kids who saw their best friends gunned down will be affected for the rest of their lives. My sister-in-law was murdered. I know what it's like. That never leaves you. I end my shows by telling everyone to go out and make a phone call to someone that you've never spoken to in a long time and let them know how much they mean in your lives. I've done this at the end of almost 700 shows. I don't know how many of you have actually done that. I hope that it's not just lip service on my end, and that you're actually listening to me, and that you're actually doing it, because it means a lot to me that people actually do it. We've got to take care of each other. It's got to stop. I love you all. I thank you for being here, either virtually or when you can be in person. But really take the time to let those people know that you love them. And please speak out against this violence. It's got to stop. And that's my message for today. Love you. Goodbye.